Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
Hey, welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Student Body Right USC podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. It's a beautiful day out here in Southern California. So USC continues its winning ways, beating up on the Arizona State. Sun Devils, Forks down, I guess, this weekend. So good job by the good job by the Bruins. I know people had some issues with it a little bit, but I do think that and a friend of our show, Evan Desai, had a tweet today, and somebody asked him about some of the stats for the USC defense. So I want to go over some of the stats for the USC defense as far as the national ranking goes. So with 12 INTs, they're number one. With 6 pick sixes, they have 3. And that's number one in the nation. They also have turnovers forced is 15. And then they have so they're tied for first as far as turnovers go. Defensive touchdowns, they have 3, which is tied for second. Opponents' red zone scoring is third. They're tied for fifth in sacks. I think defensive efficiency, we're looking at, let's double check this here, 14th, and then tackles for loss, 36, and that's 20. So I know the game was really a situation where USC USC versus ASU. ASU drove the football down the field a little bit. They scored a little bit, but as soon as halftime hit, USC took the game over. As soon as halftime hit, they started blitzing, playing more aggressive. Alex Grinch, mixed it up and got more aggressive, and they were able to contest balls down the field, knock passes down, get sacks on the quarterback as far as that goes. So I do really like what I saw in that game. I know people are waiting for the moment, and when I say that people are waiting for the moment, they're waiting for the moment to see I told you so. And what if that moment doesn't happen? Everybody's talking about that moment when everything falls apart for USC. And what if it doesn't happen? And I know people are just waiting for it to take place. I don't think it's gonna take place. I think that I watched a lot. I watched all 22. I watched a lot of different stuff with USC and their opponents, and I just I know how tricky it can get when you play a team that has an explosive young quarterback, that has some pieces on their team, like Washington State coming up this week. And we all know what's coming up the following week, right? We all know the big, the elephant in the room is Utah. I'm sorry. It's Utah, and everybody's talking about Utah, and how, they can beat in USC. Can USC beat Utah and all the things like that? But I do think that they've done a good job of just rising to the occasion every single time. There are some worry spots on this team, no question about it. I think Didich didn't play. His leg is kind of wrapped up here. We can't talk about injury. I mean, like, people aren't talking about injuries, whatever. They ask people not to do that at USC, I guess, from all the other outlets I've been hearing. But I think what they could be having with Didich too is that, hey, listen, with Didich, let him get healthy, let him come back, and again, let's see if he can be ready for the Utah game. Let him be ready for the Utah game, because Justin Didich is a big part of this football team, and we want to be at I think USC wants to be at 100% full strength when they battle the Utes. But as far as this game goes, they held them to 8 points in the second half. Caleb Williams was back to being Caleb Williams. He threw his first INT of the year in this game, which is going to be, they're 5-0, so 1 INT is pretty good. As far as that goes, I think the one thing that, he was 27 to 37, 348, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, QBR of 90.2. Biggest thing for me is this capability is amazing. His ability to, and now he's doing whatever he can to not take those hits and go out of bounds, which is something you want Caleb Williams to be able to do. He's done that now, and but I do think that is something that where you have to sit back and say, okay, we know he's capable of doing that. We know he's capable of, putting himself in a position where he can make a first down with his legs. But let's see if we can kind of lessen that a little bit, you know. Let's just see if we can protect the quarterback just a little bit more, because I think that's one of the things that if you're USC, you gotta be worried about. You gotta be worried about the fact that he is running or having to run around because they can't contain the pass rush. Next opponent, the Cougars from Pullman, they can rush the passer. They can get to the quarterback. Um, we'll get to them in a second, but I mean, from the last couple of weeks, we're seeing a little bit more pressure than we're used to seeing from Caleb Williams. We're seeing him having to kind of save these plays, from disaster all the time, and it's not what we want. We don't want that, and you don't want that as a head coach. You don't want that as if you're running an offense. You want to stay on schedule. You want to be able to get the ball to Brendan Rice, get the ball to Taj Washington, get the ball to Jordan Addison, get the ball to Super Mario. Like you need to be able to do that. And they try to be balanced in what they do, and I think that's one of the coolest things about them is they're just balanced. Um, and that's a cool thing to have that kind of balance in these games. But I do think that when they drop back the pass, you got to have confidence that the line's going to hold up. And the backs that sometimes they get some of these guys are getting run over, and in pass coverage. It's probably one of the reasons why you don't see Malik Brown a little bit in these games, because I think when you see Malik Brown in the game, they're probably throwing to him or handing the ball off to him, because I'm not sure if he's going to hold up in pass coverage. But right now, Austin Jones and Travis Dye, Travis Dye is one of those backs who, if he was in the NFL, he'd always be questionable for every game. I mean, he's that kind of guy. He'd be questionable for every single game. He'd play in every game, but he'd be questionable for it. So you have to be able to be careful with what his carries. This would be a nice game to see, if they could have gotten more out of Brown, out of Jones, just so we can kind of rest Dye a little bit. Dye, we like the little, everything is, um, you know, players are hanging off of him, his jersey's coming off, all the stuff like that. The Earl Campbell, like old NFL film type runs that he has. For those who know, like John Riggins or Jerome Bettis, some of those tough running backs. I mean, those are kind of tough runs he has. But those, he's also, when you're delivering a blow, I mean, that can take a toll on you. So, this game would be nice if they can kind of put in their breadbasket a little early. Probably, they have a good defense, so it's probably not going to happen. But I will say, when I talk about my scouting of Washington State, there are some opportunities here where USC, can maybe separate themselves early in this ball game as well. So Addison, no TDs in this one, but 8 catches for 105 yards. Mario Williams touchdown. Hudson had a touchdown in this game. Brendan Rice had a nice ball game as well. 3 catches for 72 yards. So he did a good job as well. So and Malcolm Epps also had a touchdown, 1 catch for 4 yards. As USC they've been monsters in the red zone all year. That seems to continue in this one. So the one thing I'd worry about is the special teams. Talked about the offensive line. We're worried about the offensive line. We know about the offensive line and some of their woes. Some of it's injury based. We'll have to see what happens. I know they're still switching back and forth between the tackles and stuff like that, with Cortland Ford and all that stuff like that. But what will this special teams unit, when they play a close game with somebody, maybe this week against Washington State, maybe the game when they go to Utah, is that going to be the thing that keeps them out of maybe a national championship game or a Pac-12 playoff game. I think that just watching. I sat down. I think it was a Friday night game. I thought it was a good Friday night standalone football game where Chip Kelly's UCLA Bruins and Washington had a chance to kind of battle. And I thought it was a good game to see how far along their quarterback has come. And he's come a long way. The UCLA quarterback's come a long way. So that game now is a game where maybe at the season started when USC was blowing everybody out, you might have said, hey, okay, good. We got it. You don't have to worry about it. Now that's going to be a really hard game to win. And Jake Bobo was a fantastic receiver, and they have pass rushers there at UCLA as well too. So these games are getting harder and harder. And I think the longer and longer they go undefeated, they're going to get harder and harder. It's if they get to 7-0 and they beat Utah, I think that's the game where you're going to say to yourself, now they can possibly go out there and be a team that can contend for the national championship. I mean, that's the biggest game of the year. We knew it was the biggest game of the year. We knew how difficult it was going to be to go to Corvallis. They went to Corvallis and beat Oregon State, even though it wasn't pretty. And Oregon State's kind of falling off a little bit now ever since that loss. So, and they kind of got to do the same thing with Utah. Utah is not going to be an easy game. I mean, it's just going to be you're going to be biting your nails the entire game. There's no question about it. But to get to that nail biter, Pac-12 classic game, you got to do what you got to do against Washington State first. So Washington State is a talented team as far as that goes. I think their quarterback is it's a little bit of an issue for me. Their quarterback situation there because I do think he's young. I do think he's talented, but I also think that he's a guy who could turn the ball over a little bit, which kind of plays into the fact that USC has one of these secondaries that can really turn people over. Tip passes. Gentry does a good job as well too. So we'll have to check on that. But they kind of looking at that last game that Washington State had against Cal. I was kind of like surprised to see that it was it 14. Where's that? With my notes here? What was it 14? It was deep into the fourth quarter. You're playing a bad Cal team, and it's 14-9. Like, I know it's in conference games and that can happen and all that stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like you're playing. I'm trying to pull up some stuff on Washington State. I just had up before, but think about it for a second. Like you're playing that team. It was 7-3 for a long time. Now it's 14-9. Deep into that game, I mean, if they score 9 points and they're playing you late in the third quarter against USC, I think we all know that game is going to be a little bit lopsided, a little bit lopsided there. So Cameron Ward, the quarterback, had two really bad red zone turnovers last week. So obviously, USC is hoping that that continues. But they do have some really good pass rushers on their defensive unit. They can turn the ball. They can turn you over if you're not careful with the football. So that's going to be the biggest key in this ball game as far as that goes. They got freshmen. They got freshmen in the backfield here with this team as well too. Who can they? I think Jalen Jenkins had his first touchdown of his career collegiate career last week. So they in a close game they went to him, so they kind of trust a lot of people on his roster, and just hearing their coach knows and that it's a tough battle for them. I mean, they want to be an air raid squad, and I think what Lincoln Riley does, I call it the run raid. I don't call it air raid with him because with him it's not even about air raid. It's about just being able to move the football and try to score touchdowns every time you get the ball. And they've been able to do that. And sometimes it's with the deep pass, sometimes with the intermediate pass, and sometimes with the screen game, because the screen game for the wide receivers especially has been really, really good. But they run it a whole lot. I mean, they run it a whole lot. USC runs the ball a whole lot, and that is something that I think is something that keeps them in the conversation. It keeps them in the conversation for best 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 team in the Pac in the Pac-12. When they play, teams out of conference, you're going to see a lot of teams coming out of conference. Or when they go to the Big 10, I think that the people are going to be surprised how much they run the football. They see Lincoln Riley. They think it's going to be some five wide throwing the ball down the field palooza here, but it's not necessarily going to be that at all. If they see something they like, they'll continue to do that. But he wants to run the football at his core, so that's something where I think you have USC being able to run the football. Um, you're going to see them continue to have that balance there. Um, and that's the biggest thing. Having that balance, keep trying to keep that pass rush off of Caleb Williams' back. I think that's going to be a huge part of what they do. So, 13-point favorites. USC. USC 13-point favorites over Washington State as they transition from the Sun Devils to the Cougars here. And I just like I said, I think that I'm about comfortable that you can't. They're human beings, right? They're human beings. So you have to understand that yes, part of their mind is going to be on Utah. Like that's just a gimme. There's no possible way if you're a human being, you cannot not be on Utah because it just makes all the sense in the world for them to be thinking about Utah just a little bit. I mean, the coaches, everybody is all going to be talking about that part of it too, right? So I, but you have to get to Utah, you have to go through Washington State first. And that's a big part of, being a top squad. You find a way to win. Find a way to win that game. I mean, Alabama had issues with Arkansas. They found a way to win, even with their quarterback not there. They went to Texas, found a way to win. You gotta find a way to win, and that's what they've done all year. They found ways to win. And when you think you're saying when you see people run the football on them in the first half, and everybody gets down and says, "Oh, this is what happened. I knew it was going to happen." They don't have the beef up front. The where's the beef conversation that USC fans love to have. We don't have the tackles, the defensive tackles up front to stop the run. We don't have this. We don't have that. Instead of focusing on what you do have, but you do have is a talented team that can contend with anybody pretty much. I'm just with the exception of Georgia. I still think Georgia is when they are right, can should be able to walk away and beat anybody. But even with Georgia, I mean, last week they were tooth and nail with Missouri last week. I mean, with Missouri last week. So you never know in these ball games. They won that game, I think late 26-22. We're able to come from behind and win that game. So it's just something to think about as far as that goes. I don't care how this looks this week. I really don't. I care how it looks in 2 weeks. I care how it looks when they play that team. When they're sitting there and we have to watch them play. Can they beat, this really talented, full of NFL players, Utah team? Can they beat the Utes? This week is just let's just get through it. Let's get through it. I mean, every time I hear about somebody amp up a team against USC, I watch him play live, and I'm saying to myself, okay, this quarterback from Oregon State, nice guy, but I don't think he can beat USC. Turns out he couldn't beat USC. When they have four turnovers, 4 INTs in that ball game, you can't have that. You can't have that and try to beat Utah and UCLA and USC. Excuse me, in this Pac-10, it's no way that's possible. So I do like I like their defense against this squad, especially a team that wants to throw the ball a lot. Makai Blackton, all these guys are. This team has been a very good team and an opportunistic squad, especially when you throw over the ball over the middle. And Alex Ridge tries to force you to kind of throw that ball where you don't want it, and they're able to continue to do that. I think they're able to beat the Washington Cougars and probably beat them pretty handily. And I think at the end, do what USC does, and then the nation will watch that one. I think it's at 5 o'clock, so 8 o'clock for the East Coasters out there who can, or I think it's 5 o'clock, either 5 o'clock or I think it's 5 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 5 o'clock here, and then let's see what time that game. I think it's 8 o'clock Eastern time as far as that goes. The USC Utah game, but I mean that's the game we've been watching, we're wanting to see all year, especially when UCLA got it going. I thought Utah was very impressive, even in a loss at Florida. I don't think Florida was great. I think Florida's kind of proven not to be great. But I think it was just an early season test for them to go to play a team like Florida. They were able to go beat. They were able to lose close game to Florida, but they stood their ground. We have a whole week to preview. I'm trying to get it. We'll probably have to do a show every single day of the week next week in preparation for Utah and USC as far as that game. But don't jump. You don't want to jump ahead. This the team from Pullman is talented. They have some explosiveness. They do want to they do want to throw the football down the field, which I think is, that means Tuilopu as a guy who can they can get sacks there, right? Bird can get some sacks there. You have if you're gonna blitz Gentry, I mean he has to hold the ball to throw the ball down the field. So that's why I don't know if this matchup is huge. It's really a good one. I think a matchup more so that bothers USC is running the football, getting the football out quick, and then keep those chains moving, and then occasionally go down the field. But they're gonna be trying to pull the ball down the field a lot. And I don't know if this quarterback can get through a game against a team. And I read all the stats before the game starts. Where USC stands is can he get through the game? Can Cameron Ward get through the game against USC and not turn it over? That's hard. I mean, that's gonna be a hard task for him to be able to do that. Can he get through this game without turning the ball over? Wasn't able to kind of check on their special teams. I saw they have a place kicker named Janikowski, as this channel is a Trojan and Raiders channel. I was wondering if he was related to a Sebastian Janikowski, but I guess not. Or I guess not. I'm not sure if he is or not. But special teams, maybe that's something that you can look at too. Like that's going to be the ways special teams turnovers. I don't know if they can turn the ball over or make enough mistakes to really kind of blow this game up for themselves. That's a huge part of it. Is that a possible thing? Can they actually, play that poorly in a situation where they would blow this game up to lose? I can see them. I can see USC kind of turning ball over maybe, or just not having their head on straight in this ball game. Maybe a deep shot, pass interference. You know how these Pac-12 officials are. That could happen, but I don't know if they can lose the game. Lose the game. So that's gonna be something that I would definitely look at as well too. I don't think they can. I think too many things have to go right for them to lose this ball game, for the Cougars to win it. Um, the whole thing will have to fall apart. I don't know. Maybe even an injury, knock on wood, somebody really important as well. So the protection is going to be key. I mean, you see it every football game, but when you're trying to win big and trying to be that special unit, protection is going to be big, and they have to protect better for Caleb Williams. They just have to find a way. If it's keeping backs in, if it's getting the ball out quick and just kind of waiting, because even some of those deep passes he completed, a guy's right in his face, is because he had such a great quick release. He was able to get rid of the football, and make something happen. They wanted to touch on. I know other podcasts have touched on it too. Other USC podcasts, other USC podcasts have touched on it as well. But like, can people just do their job and just be joyful? Like the dudes who are working strength and conditioning, who do the towel, who are like they call them the towel guys or towel boys, who are waving the towels on the sidelines, jumping up and down. that's part of the enthusiastic nature of college football. Let it stand. Those guys, they're not harming anybody. So what? They're getting paid to do a job they love, and we always criticize people who are doing something with joy and passion. I know that too because when I'm doing this, some folks will criticize the show and send nasty stuff back and forth. I don't really care. And I'm too blessed to be stressed, as my grandmother would say, or she would tell me. But at the end of the day, like the guys who are the towel guys on the sideline, you'll see them jump up and down. They're like three or four like jacked human beings who look like their shirts can barely fit them because they got muscles coming out anywhere. They're strength and conditioning guys at USC for the football team. If they want to wave towels during the game and it's cool with Lincoln Riley, then let it be cool. I mean, you can see them running down the sideline. I mean, those guys are in shape. Let them do their thing and then move on from it. It's okay, world. It's okay. It's really fine if that takes place. We don't have to criticize every single thing and call them all kind of names and everything like that. They can just do their job and be enthusiastic about where they work, and they work at USC. So, I mean, I think many of us would take a job at USC if we could, right? So, no reason to kind of kill them for that as far as that goes. I think of any other news and notes. I know I don't do a lot of recruiting on the show during this time because it's just a lot going on. I think maybe we'll do a little bit after the Utah game, just to kind of spell. I know USC has a break in their schedule coming up as well, so that show will do some recruiting. I know that they have some really good recruits coming in. They have some talent coming in. They have some beef coming in. They have that offensive line beef that everybody's really excited about. So some of those 4 and 5 star recruits are coming in. So and it's going to be and that's what you have to do to get them to come now. It's the NIL deals, which is huge. You're going to also have, are you winning football games? And I think that's what Notre Dame is going to have to. They're going to find that out too. It's like, are you winning football games? And if you're not winning football games, then we don't want y'all. I'm not sending my kid there. I'm not doing all that as far as that goes. I'm not gonna sit there and spend all this time with, all this time going to this school and that school and trying to figure things out. They're gonna figure things out by, are you winning? Can I get a good education? Can I get an NIL deal? And I think you're seeing companies. I mean, there's straight up, in my Instagram feed, there's a site that if you personally have a business and you want to have an NIL deal with a player in college sports, you go through them and they will contact the player to see if it's a match. Like it's Tinder or Tinder or Bumble, right? For NIL deals, if you will. I mean, it's out there. People are trying to play matchmaker out here in the college football world. So a lot going on. USC 13.5, 13-point favorites. 13-point favorites coming up as far as the game against Washington State. So look for us Sunday. Instant reaction to the game against Washington State, and then I'll talk to Evan Desai about the Utah game coming up. And then I do believe I do have another guest on here, and he covers Utah as well. So I will check. I'm going to just give him a quick plug as well. He covers the Utah Utes. Let's see here. Let me grab his name. So yeah, JT Wistrell, JT Wistrell. So he'll be a guy who is, I get exactly where he's from. He covers Utah, University of Utah. He's on Locked On Utes. So he's on he has a podcast Locked On Utes. And he also covers them. Uh, University of Utah 22, all different things like that. So he's a good guy to kind of break down the Utes, if you will, before that game, and we'll have a conversation with him as well too. You gotta let the enemy in the building so we can find out what's going on, and we'll do that with JT and we'll do that with Evan, who writes for Reign of Troy as well. So some cool stuff coming up next week. We're doing a show every day next week in preparation for the huge showdown with USC and Utah coming up. A lot of good things here coming up on the Student Body Right USC podcast. All right, deuces.